What's up, Sens fans? This is the new look Senstennial Podcast. Myself and Bennett are going to be kind of leading the charge from now on, while Matt kind of takes a much needed sabbatical from being our fearless leader for the past, oh my God, what season is this now, Bennett?
More than I th more than you'd think. I mean, we started
Yeah,
recording in like February 2020 in
yeah.
all of our naivete, and then the world shut down for a significant amount of time.
Like, what was that? I was just reminiscing with somebody about like, man, COVID was just a fever dream, you know? Like,
It does feel that way at this point.
I think the craziest thing had to be when like the news came in that like the NBA decided to shut down like mid-game. And this was like the day after Rudy Gobert just like touched all of the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
microphone.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
And
crazy
then
time, dude.
yeah, and then
Crazy time.
the NHL shut down and
Yeah.
yeah, and then you just had games where it was like completely empty, and then they
Yeah.
were playing to Sens sickos and Sens fans cutouts,
Yeah.
and then
Oh, I
like
forgot about
500
that.
people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. That was Stutzla's rookie year.
Yeah.
Um, and he was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and
Yeah.
obviously, he's coming into his fifth season,
Yeah.
which is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, like far from being a rookie at this point, right? Which it
Yeah.
still feels like yesterday that he debuted. It's like I remember some of those absolute beatdowns against the Oilers we had during the Canadian
Oh
division in
God.
2021. And I remember Stützle scoring, I think it was his first career hat trick, and it was just like the most like joyless hat trick I've ever seen. Because like he like goals two and three were scored when we were already down by like seven or something.
Yeah.
So, I remember like he didn't even like crack a smile. But then the whole thing with like the hats and like the backyard the next day with like the kids, like it was
Yeah.
bright spots. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
we spent a
that
lot
was
of
good.
time. We spent a large proportion of time since we started this podcast, like not being able to go to games, or
Yeah.
in some cases even like there were no games.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that. And now um we're on the 2025-26 season. And Tim Stützle is our number one center. And at the time when we drafted him, and during that COVID season, there was a lot of like he was a winger, and who was going to be Ottawa's future number one center. Um, a lot of talk about how Stützle could not be a defensive player and this, that, and the other thing. And you look at you know, who he is now. And we can like go right into the Tampa game, but I thought he was incredible. He
Yeah.
looked he looked like a world beater out there. He was doing absolutely everything. I think he had like five shots on goal.
Hmm.
And of course, starts the season where he should have had two or three, and gets just stonewalled by Andrei Vasilevsky. And it's a tale as old as time where Tim Stützle should have had that many goals, but he didn't. But what a game that was! The
Hmm.
Sens go down 3-0, and then
There's 2-0, then 2-1,
oh
then three
two, yeah,
one.
and
Yeah.
they scored the first goal of the game. It
Mhm.
just didn't count.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, the high sticking.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was a crazy game. I mean, like we start off in the hole and you're thinking, "Oh, here we go. Okay,
yeah,
a reminder of how tough it is to win in this division when you've got the likes of Tampa and Florida, and I mean even like the Leafs as well, like on your schedule more than any other teams, and they're just like some of the toughest teams in the league, at least in terms of the regular season. But yeah, the boys showed a lot of fight to come back. Like you said, Stisler was flying that game. Shin Pinto, which I'm sure we'll discuss, also, really like came through with a couple of big goals there at the end. Um, I thought that Zetterlund had some good looks on that line with
Yeah,
Stützle. He set him
I
up for
agree.
that breakaway opportunity that, if there's anyone other than Vasilevsky, Stützle probably would have buried that. So yeah, I mean, it's a very small sample size from that first game, but some flashes of possible chemistry there. And we hope that that relationship can flourish because we signed Zetterlund for a couple of years. We're showing some faith in the guy, even though he didn't have a super strong start to his Sens career after the trade deadline. But I think that you want teams to bet on speed, to bet on skill and stuff, and hopefully we can see him continue to get some looks on that first line and show what he can do. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was a game that in the end, the Sens only won by one goal. And there's some shaky periods as well. So I guess you wanted to talk about the penalty kill, and possibly Ullmark as well.
Yeah, I think if you got to talk about one with the other,
Yeah.
and for like we can
As they
start with
say, your goalie is your most important penalty killer, right?
absolutely. Ottawa's problem right now is that they have absolutely no discipline.
Mm,
The game against Tampa, they took multiple penalties.
yeah.
The game against Florida, like it just felt like I was at a Thanksgiving dinner with some family and we had the game on. Every time I looked up, there was another penalty that Ottawa was taking, and it feels like it's always like this at the start of the season. Um, Generally, though, the issue is that our penalty kill is not in like the 30, like hovering around the 37% success rate, though.
Hmm.
This has to be one of the worst penalty killing setups I've seen, and it seems much worse than last year
Hmm.
because they were really employing that the diamond, but I don't even know what it is now. It feels like it's constantly shifting, and
Right.
it's just not working whatsoever.
Do
Uh,
you see it as a poor planning or a poor execution?
I think it's a bit of both.
Right.
I think it's always going to be poorly executed if your poor planning is at the forefront.
Yeah.
When your coaching staff is trying new things, and like if this is just something they're trying out, there's a lot of positivity towards trying something, seeing if it works. If it doesn't work, well, that's life.
Hmm.
But 2 games in,
Yeah.
and you have not even killed off 50% of the power plays that you
Hmm.
are defending against is quite frankly just like pathetic.
Hmm.
They bring in Lars Eller. They already had like a solid cast of players on their PK.
Hmm.
I don't know why it's happening like this,
Yeah.
but my God. And then it goes into the other problem that Linus Allmark is struggling.
Hmm.
He just doesn't seem like he's got a lot of confidence, and it begs the question like, do you start him going into the home opener?
Hmm.
Because Levi Merilainen, Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected, he just gets put in and does his job and goes home.
Hmm.
What would you do here? Because Allmark in the last 2 games has had a 840 save percentage in a win and a 778 save percentage in a loss, and he has a
Hmm.
5 goals against average in 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the key stat that you said there is in 2 games. I think
Yeah.
it's an 82 game season. I think it's really hard to draw meaningful conclusions after only 2 games, particularly when you're facing two really good teams in those games. I mean, listen, like if we started off the season against, I don't know, like Buffalo and then Utah or something,
Yeah.
and we were getting shelled, I mean, I'd be a little bit more concerned, but I think that, it's always a tough day out against Tampa or Florida. That being said, obviously you'd prefer to have your goalie playing well to start the year than playing in a bit of a hole. But I think you definitely start him for the home opener. I think for the next few weeks, you have to treat Ullmark as if he's your starter because that is sort of the situation that we're in. This is not a tandem situation with two goalies of kind of like equal like pedigree and experience. Meriläinen had a really awesome start to his Sens career last year. And it wasn't technically the first games he'd ever played for the team, but it was really his like a rival as an Ottawa Senators player. And so he has a lot of, positive vibes going for him right now, but he's the backup. Like this is not a
Yeah,
situation where
absolutely.
he should or he or anyone expects him to be, sharing the crease, 50-50 or 60-40 with Ullmark. So it has to be Ullmark's crease until, certainly at least for the first few weeks or month of the season. And then if, as you're approaching the quarter of the season mark, if he's continuing to really struggle, it's like, okay, maybe we can slip Maryline and some more starts, see where we're at, see how he's doing, and then kind of evaluate from there. But I think you have to give Ullmark a chance to kind of like play his way back into form at this very early stage in the season.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
keen-eyed listeners and readers will know that one of our storylines for the season that we talked about on our blog the other week was what kind of Ullmark we're going to see all year because he had hot and cold flashes all time last season. He had very solid stretches, very patchy stretches. Playoff performance was not so great, but also I don't think he was necessarily the biggest problem in, what went wrong in that series. So anyway, I think Allmark has too much talent for me to want to, throw in the towel on him for sure. And I mean, like we locked him up to a long-term deal. I think the team rightfully has a lot of faith in him. He has a really
Yeah.
good attitude, like in
Yeah.
all of his like interviews and stuff. But he had a slow start last season too, and you know what? He brought it back. So I have faith.
Yeah, you kind of just hope that it's a bit of a pattern.
Yeah.
Has a bit of a wonkier start at the forefront of the season and then kind of just dials in.
Hmm.
The issue is this Ottawa team just seems to have trouble with icing like the correct team, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like Travis Green is a great coach, and he deserved all of the flowers he got last season. But it is hard to kind of look at the roster that he put forth in Tampa and then in Florida and say, was that actually the best roster that we could be icing, or was it a sort of like gamesmanship type
Hmm.
deal?
Right.
Because Tampa is apparently the goon show of the NHL right now. Them and Florida combined for what 400 penalties in one game in the preseason,
Oh
and
yeah.
then Ottawa faces off against Tampa, and suddenly you're getting three or four guys in the box at one time, and I just look at a player like Curtis McDermott, and uh, he is completely useless aside from fighting.
Hmm.
Genuinely one of the worst skaters I have ever seen. And like why is a guy like that frankly can't really bring a lot else onto a fourth line playing when they had a guy in Ollie Lixell, I believe it's pronounced. He had a great preseason and a great
Hmm.
camp, and that's why they kept him around. And I think he with Lars Eller would be way more impactful than what we saw. So you have that, and then I mean, I don't mean to say that the like Sabrango, Matt, and Paolo pairing is terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but we did bring in uh, a veteran right hand defenseman in Jordan Spence.
Hmm.
And not playing him in the first game seeing that pairing struggle in the first game and
Yeah.
then still not playing him in that second game is questionable to say the least.
Yeah. Well, you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember and I think it was the 2021 COVID season,
Yep.
when we signed Zub out of Russia and
Yep.
he sat in the bench for the first 12 games or something, or in the press box, as it
Yep.
were. And we kept
Socially
being like,
distance as
yeah,
far as anybody could be.
absolutely. Yes. We love a COVID conscious king.
Yeah.
And we signed this guy that was highly touted. Lots of other teams were interested in him. And, he sat for the first like half or quarter of the season. And we're like, why did we get this guy if we weren't going to
Yeah.
play him? And then, after, we finally like tired of watching some of our, like aged
Yeah, it
veteran
was
players
Braden
get,
Coburn, Eric
yeah.
DeBranson.
Yeah. Just
Oh
like
my
getting like
heavens.
dummied like night in, night out. We put him
Yeah.
in and he has literally not left the lineup since. So it is entirely possible that the organization or the coaching staff, whatever the case may be, feels like they owe Matt and Paolo,
Yeah.
you know, like an extended look at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And if they don't like what they see, then they have Spence waiting in the wings to step in and see if he can make that spot his own. So I don't hate that necessarily. Again, like I wouldn't read into him not playing in the first two games, too heavily. Uh, but certainly we hope that if Matt and Paolo and Sabranko like can't hack it as like a pairing, that they'll make some changes. It's like I don't anticipate that they would just them out there indefinitely. I think that there's some recognition that they have other guys that could step into those roles.
I'm interested to see though, when Clevin comes back, if they just take the Zabrango, Matt and Paolo pairing out completely and
Hmm.
go Clevin Spence, because those guys complement each other quite well.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, we talked about it on the pod, and we had written about it on the blog. I'm surprised that Spence is out. He
Hmm.
was getting games with Jake Sanderson. He was getting games with Thomas Chabot.
Hmm.
He was playing with everybody in the preseason.
Hmm.
And a lot of people were theorizing that he could potentially replace Zub, and
Hmm.
Zub would go back to playing with Chabot. And then Jensen, the aging veteran, could go and play on the third pair and kind of help Clevin
Hmm.
develop. So it's just a bit surprising with
Hmm.
where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because we gave up assets to go out and get Steve Stales went out and did a steady Steve. Everybody said it's, one of the sneakiest best picks of the summer. And a lot of like, I agreed. I think a lot of people agreed. And I would be shocked if he wasn't in against Nashville, though.
Hmm.
It, uh, yeah, it just feels like they can't go back to that lineup that played against Florida, because that game was horrendous
Hmm.
for just about everybody.
Yeah, I mean, other than Pinto, no
Yeah.
one in the first couple of games has like really covered themselves in glory for the team. Like we said, Ullmark starting slow, some of the big dogs on the roster also starting seemingly slow. I mean, again,
Yeah,
it's
two
two
games.
games.
They
There's
have like 1 point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like that's
Pinto's second in the league for points.
yeah. Yeah. Obviously these trends will continue
Yeah,
indefinitely.
yeah,
Pinto will finish the season with 800 goals.
yep,
But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how things settle in long term,
yeah,
because I think that, this team is not substantially changed from last year, but I think that, you know, there are some players that are primed to take some positive steps. There are some players that, could find themselves, um, seeing less game time as the season goes on, whether it's due to age or poor performance. I think that, this roster is as fluid as it can be without actually having seen a lot of significant changes. There's
Yeah.
guys that you could see starting the season on the first line and then to get on the fourth line and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it will be interesting to see. I think that, Dylan Cousins, getting a goal early, I think was also nice. This is a guy
Yeah.
that I think a lot of us have really like strong expectations for this year. He had a solid start to his career as a Senator post-trade deadline. And I mean, sidebar, I mean, no longer a Senators player, but you do have to feel
Yeah.
bad for Josh Norris, seemingly out long term after a couple of games in Buffalo this season. The
After a
same,
wicked preseason.
yeah, and it's the same old story. It's the shoulder, it's a face off. Us Senators players have seen it happen a couple of times, not just to him too. The same thing happened to Shane Pinto a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
He took a face off one time. It was just like, nope, and missed half
Yeah.
the season. Uh, so yeah, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, it does suck as usual to see Josh Norris going down with an injury. That being said, I have no idea what Buffalo were thinking making that trade last year, man, because anyone, could have told you that Josh Norris was you know, like a walking, like ambulance siren.
Yeah.
And they gave one of their best young player or, what outsiders would have considered one of their best young players to him and like another asset,
Yeah.
like,
I think a lot of people look at that. It's the second round pick
yeah.
that baffles people.
Oh, yeah.
They go for a slightly older player with more money
Uh-huh.
and a defenseman in Jacob Bernard Docker who they didn't even qualify.
Yeah.
And then the Sens get Dylan Cousins, who's signed for the exact same amount of time
Hmm.
for basically $1 million less, like give or take,
Hmm.
and a second,
Hmm.
which potentially could be a high second.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel for Buffalo fans. I
Hmm.
really feel for Buffalo fans, and I really feel for Josh Norris. We have wanted that guy to succeed for so long. And,
Hmm.
even last season, like obviously not on the team anymore. We want Dylan Cousins to be the better player.
Hmm.
That's just how we
Yeah.
are. But we want to see Josh Norris do well. And when I heard that he went down in a game and I saw what happened, I was like, "Oh, that's not good at all."
Hmm.
And it almost screams fourth shoulder injury or
Yeah.
fourth shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's like, how many times can you do this?
Yeah.
Like how long can you do this for
Yeah.
before you have to just call it? And that sucks. That
Yeah.
really sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, tough situation for Josh to be in. But man, I mean, there was times, last season and seasons prior where I was very worried that the Sens would have to eat the entirety of
Yeah.
that contract.
Yeah.
Um, or that we'd have to, retain a significant amount if we wanted to move him. But credit to, to Steve in the front office, they cashed in on Norris's like one healthy season in his last like four seasons when he, had like 20 plus goals for the first time in a while and, was seemingly playing healthy, playing well. And they got him and that contract off our books for a younger, healthier player. And then, it immediately blew up in Buffalo's faces. I mean, you can't again, much as you feel bad for Josh Norris in the situation, they executed it perfectly because I mean, there were times where, I genuinely lost sleep over that contract, and that is not an exaggeration.
Yeah, I think we kind of looked at it as I remember when that news came in and was shocked that
Hmm.
the Sens were actually able to trade Josh Norris's contract.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very good contract because yeah, I don't think he was ever going to live up to those
No.
expectations
I mean,
of
he
being
had
a
a
35 goal scorer.
yeah, and again, this is like a, not to jump up and down on Pierre Dorian's grave any more than we need to, but
Why
why not?
not?
We can do what we want. And
This is the Senstennial
this
Podcast, baby.
there are no rules.
Yeah,
Yeah, Pierre Dorian was a GM that frequently kind of like drank the Kool-Aid. Like I think like
yeah.
all of us can say that with the benefit of hindsight. He saw Josh Norris come off a career year where he had a shooting percentage of like, like 12 or 13% or something. And
I think it was even higher.
it
I
might have
think
been higher than
it
that,
was
yeah.
almost close to 20.
Yeah, I don't have the stat in front of me, but
Yeah.
it's like he had a horseshoe stuck up his ass the whole year. Hit 35 goals before going down with like, like season-ending shoulder injury. And I think, Dorian really bit hard on, oh, as you may recall at the time, Sens fans were, giddy, like, oh, he was on a 40 goal a season pace. As soon as he gets back from injury, we have a 40 goal scorer. And of course, the NHL rarely works that way. But Dorian kind of like fell for it, for lack of a better way of putting it. And, he in spite of the, red flag injury to cap off that season, and in spite of the fact that, um, you know, Norris had a very high shooting percentage that year, he treated him as if he was a present and future 35, 40 goal a year guy, and he's literally never done that again, and probably never will.
Yeah.
So, I think that was a player like Josh Norris, screams bridge deal, and they backed up the Brinks truck for the guy, and I am just still stunned and impressed that we didn't have to retain any of that salary in that trade.
Yeah, so
And I think if it had been any other team other than Buffalo, we probably would have had to.
I did remember a tidbit that Elliot Friedman had mentioned that the Canucks were actually close to acquiring Norris last season.
Oh, really?
And it involved Philip Hedl and a pick for Josh Norris.
Right,
Hedl has started off pretty hot for Vancouver recently.
right.
Well, recently in the last two games.
Hmm.
But I had to look because I remember his shooting percentage being absurdly high,
Yeah.
and his two most successful seasons, including last season.
Hmm.
Um, so last season he had a 21% shooting percentage,
Yeah.
and his 35 goal season he had a 20% shooting percentage.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah, yeah, and not like sustainable, right? I mean, like like Alex Ovechkin has like a career shooting percentage of like I don't know, like 13 or 14%. I
It's
remember
because
having an argument.
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember having an argument one time with someone on Reddit. They're like, "Oh, that's because like Ovechkin's like he's like a volume shooter." I was like, "Every goal scorer is a volume shooter, because you have to, because normally you don't score every fifth shot, and if
yeah.
you do, you're
You'd be
either,
shooting 5 shots a game.
yeah, and if you do, you're literally, like prime Maurice Richard, or you're lucky as hell.
Yeah.
And we all know what the case was with Josh Norris that year.
Yeah. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, it sucks. And I'm happy that Dylan Cousins is on our team. I think he needed a fresh start. I think
Yeah.
Josh Norris needed a bit of a fresh start too.
Hmm.
Um, and it's super unfortunate. I really hope that he can get back to health and then make a decision for his future. Um,
Hmm.
but I did really like Dylan Cousins' game in that first game, and I'm not sure I liked many people's games in the second one, except Shane Pinto, who is without a doubt just killing it, and he is making Steve Staios sweat with that. I feel like every game the contract number is going up by maybe a
Yeah.
hundred or 200,000.
Yeah, yeah. Shane Pinto's agent is like emailing Steve Staios like every after every game, like plus 100K. plus
Yeah,
100K.
or like it's just a picture of Shane with his tongue out, like, and oh man, I
Yeah,
would not enjoy that. But
yeah,
it's a good problem to have in the sense that if you have a Shane Pinto and a Dylan Cousins basically just fighting to be the second line center,
yeah,
that's sick. That's a
yeah,
great problem to have.
yeah,
And this team doesn't even have Drake Batherson right now.
yeah.
So that will be a value add to the lineup, and uh, that will push out McDermott, no
Hmm.
questions asked. And I would ideally like to see Nick Cousins out too, because I think younger, faster players are in this lineup that
Yeah,
are as effective.
yeah. And I
Um,
also think it's just, grounds for confusion to have two cousins in a lineup. I think
yeah,
that, especially, I know that they're spelled differently, but like, come on,
yeah.
be for
One is
real.
called their nicknames is Rich Cousins and Poor Cousins or something like that. That's insane to me. Oh God. So tomorrow is the home opener against Nashville, 1 p.m. Eastern
Yeah,
Standard Time start.
yeah. We'll be
Um,
there. Will you be there?
yep, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be there. And then what are your thoughts on that one? Do you think the Sens bounce back?
I think that they can. Yeah, I think that this Nashville team, had a disastrous season last year, following what meant, they were as is often the case, the team that gets, crowned kind of like the
Yeah,
off-season winners, often fall flat on their face.
it's true.
We the Senators,
We were,
your Ottawa Senators have been in that exact situation. And it happened in Nashville. They signed every interesting free agent and they ate shit all last year.
yeah.
So I don't particularly fear playing the Predators. Well, I mean, I say that my wife and I went out to Nashville to watch them play last year, and we got rinsed. So, I mean, anything can
Yeesh.
happen, right? Or that might have been 2 years ago, now that I
I
say
think it
that.
was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and plant the flag and say that I think the Sens do take the home opener.
I think the Sens are gonna come out guns blazing on that one.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna
that
be
that midweek Buffalo game though, that
that
screams.
screams bad.
Yeah, the Senators historically did not play well on non-traditional nights. Like your Wednesday games, your Sunday games,
And
and uh,
listen, if
and
if
and against
there's
Buffalo in
yeah,
general.
every time somebody's like, "Oh, a Tuesday night in February against Buffalo is a guaranteed loss,"
Yeah,
and it always has Buffalo,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
like I don't know about Buffalo. Buffalo's a weird team. Who knows?
yeah,
And then we have the Kraken the day after.
yeah,
Uh, and that like Joey Decord is a great goalie. Hopefully we get Philip Grubauer.
yeah.
Um, Seattle's such a weird team. Like I don't think they're that good,
Hmm.
but like they're like just under the mushy middle.
Yeah.
They're dazzlingly mediocre. And then
Yeah.
finally, the Islanders on a Saturday matinee. Um,
Yeah.
that should be a win as well. Like,
Hmm.
frankly, we mentioned this at the start before we hit record. This should be a 4 for 4 week for the Sens.
Hmm. Yeah, if this team has, serious ambitions of once again being a playoff team, perhaps even, I think, challenging for a division, I think is tough, based on, we're kind of like locked in this, uh, like glass cage match with, three of the best regular season teams in the league. So it's a tough spot to be in. I see this. I can see the Sens going 3 for 4 this week. Again, that Buffalo game. I mean, it. If you've been following the Senators for more than a season or two, that screams scheduled loss.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm gonna say 3 for 4. I think the Islanders. I think that Nashville, Seattle, and the Islanders all occupy a similar space of like teams that like on paper look kind of pretty good, but like in practice tend to not be very good.
Yeah.
And you hope and expect that the Sens can beat those teams because if you're not beating those teams, you make it a lot harder for yourself when you have to win all of your games against like the Tampas and the Floridas of the world.
Yeah. I look at October and it's not it's not an easy month and it's not a hard month. You've got easier games and you got hard games.
Yeah.
It should be a month that you go above 500 because
Yeah.
that's just what you need to do.
Yeah. I think if the Sens aren't above 500 by October 31st, I am starting to sweat a little bit because, other than like, the two games we just played against the two Florida teams, and then the game against, Edmonton the week after this one, and I guess maybe Washington, none of these teams are like super good.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of mushy middle kind of teams, like teams that are
Yeah.
like either bubble playoff teams or rebuilding teams or kind of like teams that should be rebuilding, but
Yeah.
their front offices haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
If the Sens aren't a 500 team at the end of this month, I am definitely like kind of concerned. Because at that point, we'll have played like 10 games or so,
Yeah.
and we should be beating most of these teams if we want to be going back to the playoffs this spring,
Yeah.
which I think we will all say is a goal at this point.
Yeah.
In seasons past, it was, we want to challenge for a playoff spot, we want to play meaningful games, all that stuff. It's like, okay, well, like we've made it once, we got, belt to ass by our most hated rivals, you know, we have to go back, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to get back. We have to give ourselves another opportunity to play games in April to get those like playoff reps in for the young guys to, get everyone kind of like established, get yourselves in the mix. Like that's what you got to do. Like you can't rely on a deep playoff run, if you're not making the playoffs every year, basically.
Yeah. It's a tough league to be successful in, and they keep adding teams, but they don't keep adding playoff spots.
Hmm.
So, kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Bettman's League, you know what I mean? Um, you know, I think this team has a solid core to it, and on paper, in practice, they should be a playoff team this year.
Hmm.
But we need to make sure that they're actually doing it. And like, yes, we've lost one game, and
Yeah.
it was against Florida, who is the Cup champ, and the Sens just didn't look very good.
Hmm.
So you kind of hope that they come out guns blazing against Nashville tomorrow
Hmm.
and just hit the ground running.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, until you've got, 10, 15, 20 games in the books, it's real hard to draw any meaningful conclusions. We can only
Yeah.
react to the games that are in front of us. We've had one pretty good game and one not so very good game. Until, we have a larger sample size, it's gonna be hard to say anything meaningful. But I think all we can hope for at this point is that they have a strong week two. Hopefully they win the home opener. That's always a good way to kind of
Yeah.
like, you
Set
know,
the tone.
set the tone exactly. And listen, you don't have to if you decide to not watch that Wednesday night game against Buffalo, no one's gonna hold it against you. It's just like that's just cursed.
Yeah, go and check the vibes, see what you're feeling, and maybe you don't have to watch it, and life will be good that way too.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Jays will be playing that night anyway, so
Yeah, and unfortunately, I just checked, and they lost 3-1, and it's going to be a tough series for them, but they
yeah.
are the Ottawa Senators of the MLB. So with that said, everybody, we hope you enjoyed this first episode of the season, the first iteration of what will be the Senstennial for the decent future. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, the dreaded Twitter, at the Senstennial or at Senstennial. And we're going to be trying to make this a little more consistent. Everybody's lives are a little more chill right now. Well, I mean, Bennett's having a second kid, but I just got married, so that's not on my calendar anymore. So, with that said, we'll see you next week, and let's hope that the Sens go 4 for 4 in October.
Yeah, go Sens go. Go Jays go, I guess also. I feel
Yeah.
like most of us are following with one eye on each at the moment. And hey, good to be back. Good to be covering Senators hockey and looking forward to hopefully another successful season.
And that's all you can say. So, with that said, everybody, go Sens go.
Later.